Freddie Freeman fired his agent yesterday. The Excel agency had an agent that represented Freddie Freeman, and he just gave him the zig. And this is pretty interesting because it speaks to something in life. At least it speaks to something in sports. Freeman, of course, lifetime Atlanta Brave. He was cornerstone of that franchise, the team leader, clubhouse leader, civic icon. He was the guy. He was the modern model of the Atlanta Braves, and then was finally there when they got over the hump this past October and won the World Series. So Freddie Freeman, conquering hero, had been with the Braves during the rebuild, had been with the Braves when they couldn't get over the hump, finally due, foundational piece, one day his number to be retired by the Braves, a Braves kind of franchise icon, now has won the World Series, but his contract expired. And they didn't get a deal done during the season or before last season. Freeman and his agent wanted more money or another guaranteed year from the Braves with the offer. They played hardball. The Braves quickly moved on. Sounds like Freddie Freeman's agent gave him a take it or leave it offer that said, here's our demands, and you've got an hour to respond. And the Braves said no, and that's when they went towards Matt Olson, his replacement. And so that left Freddie Freeman without the counter negotiation because the Braves reportedly looked at it as a take it or leave it. And so ultimately he signs with the Dodgers. Now, landing with the Dodgers for the extra year, for more money, and the Dodgers being a perennial contender would seem like all things, end well, fine. But this past weekend, the Dodgers play in Atlanta. Freddie Freeman gets his World Series ring. He is applauded by the fans. The organization totally loves him up. And over the course of the weekend, Freddie Freeman is seen talking, joking, fraternizing with the Braves the entire weekend. That during BP, pregame, ring ceremony, that he's just constantly hanging out with his old teammates. To the point where Buster Olney said the Dodgers were getting frustrated because by the end of the weekend, it's like, hey, come on, you're a Dodger. This whole weekend, you've acted like a Brave. Can we move through this here? So there was some frustration about just how connected Freeman was to the organization, to the team, to his teammates, etc. Like, hey, we got to move on. In the wake of that, the guy who negotiated this deal, Freddie Freeman, fired. And the MLBPA put out a statement, which is not uncommon, to say, Freeman is no longer represented. Do not, everybody, come out of the weeds to try to represent him. He's going to represent himself for right now. So we don't want this kind of feeding frenzy. And there are these two sides of this Freeman situation. Number one, it is, hey, Freddie, this agent works for you. He gave them a take it or leave it offer. You guys played hardball. Chipper Jones warned you not to play hardball. Then you got stiffed. You had to sign somewhere else. And now you're taking it out on your agent. Wasn't his fault. This was your offer between the two of you. You guys overplayed your hand. But I don't see it that way necessarily, and here's why. Yes, of course, the agent works for the player. But, and this is from some experience having an agent in the broadcast world and having changed agents as well over the course of my career, it strikes me that when it comes to having an agent in my world or the sports world or other worlds, entertainment, music, choose your industry that you have these representatives, these agents. The agent is there oftentimes for a win. They need to feel like they get a win. They want, especially something as hyper-competitive as baseball, where these are $100 million contracts. You're looking for wins for your client, which is why your super agents are the ones, your Scott Borases, that nobody wants to deal with, that always gets the last cent, and that's why he collects so many representatives. That's why he collects so many players, is because they want the guy that's going to fight tooth and nail, hard ball, hard line, get you the most money, the most years. They want somebody they know is going to max out their value. So Scott Boras is the most popular agent, even though everybody hates him. Impossible to deal with. So these agents are wired to get you every last dollar, and they consider that a win. But in a lot of ways in life, the last dollar is not the win. And I'm not going to speak from any type of heightened enlightenment here, but I've always felt like, yeah, I could chase a bigger contract, more money, et cetera, other places, but is that really fulfilling me? Am I really weighing everything? Because coming to work and smiling, not hating your bosses, not being put in bad situations, not being put in loser situations where you know you can't shine, is not worth it. Not for that type of money change. And what I say by that is, for the rest of us, man, an extra 10 grand a year, you'll eat a lot of crap for that. An extra 50 grand a year, you'll back up the Brinks truck crap, right? But in baseball, come on. Freddie Freeman had already earned $200 million over the course of his career, and here was trying to get an extra $20 million in the back end of this deal. That's not worth it. But the agent doesn't think that way. The agent's like, I got you the extra guaranteed year. Now, I'm not saying Freeman didn't necessarily steer him in that direction, because Freeman might have been like, I can't believe they're jerking me around. I'm Freddie Freeman. Look what I've done for this franchise. They've got plenty of money. I've seen their corporate suites. I know the season ticket sales. I see the television revenue. They got the money for me. They should give me the money. And yes, money oftentimes is a sign of respect in these situations. So I understand that. And maybe his agent was like, hey, I'm hearing from Freddie that respect means the guaranteed year. Respect means the extra $25 million. And we're not getting it here. And this is my way to, get the offer that I think we deserve, or get it somewhere else. But what Freeman either ignored that moment, or his agent ignored that moment, is what's happiness? And happiness for Freddie Freeman is clearly being a Brave. Happiness is not being a Dodger. My guess is he could win the next 3 World Series in L.A. It won't mean what last year meant in Atlanta. One of those two guys, or both of them in the heat of the moment because they were PO'd or they wanted the win, ignored what happiness meant. And this is something that I think is so interesting, because do you really care that Freddie Freeman fired his agent? No. If you're a Braves fan, you probably feel kind of burnt, like, see, you screwed up. But for the rest of America, nobody really cares that Freddie Freeman is in Dodger instead of a Brave, nor do you care that Freddie Freeman has a new agent. You didn't know this agent, you won't know the next one. But it's a lesson in life. And that is, we can oftentimes get so worn down by what we perceive as disrespect that we ignore the forest through the trees. And again, I'm not saying I'm above this. I'm just saying this happens a lot, where you feel like you're being disrespected by the office, by the boss, by the wife, by the husband, by the parent, by this, by your teacher, and you ignore what really should be driving you, because you want the win. You want the win. If you get screwed out of $150 because somebody overcharged you on something, they haven't followed through, and you know that they really screwed you, you can take one of two paths. One is, I am going to relentlessly attack this company, this agent, what have you, for the $150 because they screwed me out of principle. Principle. which I have absolutely fought this battle in my head before. Is it worth me investing $150 worth of my time every day to get this $150 back? Or is peace of mind more valuable? That, you know what? You take the L and you move on, because ultimately the $150 won't change your life, but stressing every day about the principle will. That was Freddie Freeman here. He didn't need an extra $25 million. He didn't. He didn't need the extra year. It doesn't matter in his life. After taxes, what is this? $10 million, $11 million on a career that will have earned $350 million? It didn't matter. But it was the principle. You hear this all the time. But the principle. I need to be respected. This was wrong. It's the principle. We're all trying to prove points. The principle. It's a hard thing. When you know you've been wronged or you feel disrespected, it's a hard thing not to want the principle to be validated, to be solved, to be corrected. But it is such an important lesson. Freddie Freeman screwed up, and his agent screwed up, because when the rubber hit the road over the winter, had one of them just stepped back and said, what's happiness to you? What's satisfaction? What's comfort? What's friendship? Is it staying here in Atlanta because you know everybody and you just won a World Series and things are really good right now? Things are really good. Is that happiness? Or do you have to prove this point because that's happiness? And I think in the moment they wanted to prove the point and they wanted to feel validated in that extra year guaranteed. And in retrospect, it was meaningless. Because Freeman knows. Well, what is this? Also, throw this little monkey wrench into it. Because of California taxes, he might end up making less when all is said and done than he would have made with one less year in Atlanta. So they got the extra year of security, quote unquote, but might have made less money doing so. Was it worth it? And what you're realizing is no. Now, again, who knows? It's distinctly possible, and this has also happened behind the scenes, I think, many times over, where players or people that are represented don't know how ugly it gets, and that's the good thing. You have an agent, you pay them 10% because you don't have to deal with the ugliness. You don't have to hear your bosses dismiss you, disrespect you, say you're not actually worth that. You don't have to have those conversations. Those are ugly conversations that hurts your self-confidence. You don't want to hear it. And so you have your agent be the go-between there. And it's possible the agent and a tough negotiator in the Braves front office got into it. It was ugly. And Freeman had no idea it was getting that ugly. And that battle played out beyond what he knew. And then he learned about it maybe this past weekend when we went to Atlanta and was like, wow, getting the side of the Braves, we really screwed up here. My agent screwed up. He didn't tell me any of this. I'm firing him. That could have been as well. Ultimately, I just think that it is a lesson in life of, if you can, try to keep the bigger picture at all times as your priority. Because if you don't and you get nailed into the moment of anger, of vindictiveness, of proving somebody else wrong so that you're right, there could be remorse and regret and a mistake made at the back end of it. And that's what Freeman had to admit this weekend. We made a huge mistake, because that would have been happiness. Where I am now is not.